All right, you asked for it, you wrote in, you pleaded for it, and now you're going to hear about it. The causes, the reasons, how to get over it. We're talking about heartburn with Dr. Bill Orr, who comes to us from Oklahoma City. Nice to have you here on the show.
Thanks very much.
Dr. Orr has brought along...
Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Orr, good.
Bye.
Sorry, it's not Bobby Orr.
But every time you look at inside what's going on inside your body, I mean, I get the heebie-jeebies. Do I really have one of these?
You've got
You
lots
better
of
be
it.
grateful.
About 8 feet.
Really? What is
Yeah.
that? Is that the intestine?
That's the small intestine.
And this?
That's the stomach. That's where all that bad acid is.
And
your
this
stomach.
over here, Doc?
That's the colon. That's the large bowel.
Wow. Boy, there's really a lot going on in the human body.
You bet.
All right. So anyway, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
All the way in from Oklahoma City to explain the mystery of heartburn to us here in New York. And we appreciate that very
Thanks
much.
very much.
All right, what can you tell us about this now?
Well, let me just explain, first of all, what heartburn is.
Okay.
It's a burning sensation that occurs right beneath the breastbone. I think everybody in the audience probably knows that already.
The breastbone being...
Right here.
Yeah.
Just right there, the sternum.
Sternum.
Really? Is that where you
Right.
get it? I get mine a little lower.
Well, sometimes you do.
And to the rear.
Well, no, that's not very common. You're an anomaly
Your
in that sense,
sternum is in a
Regis.
very strange place.
Yes, it is.
We're a little wild here in New York City.
Yes, I can tell. I can tell.
We get it in strange places. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
That's true. But that's common. Everybody understands that. It's a very common phenomenon.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about heartburn is the fact that it's been trivialized as not very important. You know, we see take Rolaids for this, take Rolaids for that. Tums and so forth. The problem is if this goes on more than once or twice a week, it really is a medical problem. And it should be something you should go see your physician about, because it can really result in some very serious complications. Now let's explain first of all what actually happens when we have heartburn. We get the stomach, which is right here. This is normally where acid is. Now when that acid backwashes up into the food tube, which is right in here.
Food tube.
Wait a minute, which one's the food?
The food tube is
34?
right there, 34. See, this is for dumb doctors, you know, who don't know where the food tube is. It's 34, right here.
Is that the esophagus?
That's the esophagus, Kathy, very good. Now, when the acid backwashes from the stomach back through this little valve you were talking about earlier, Regis, then we get heartburn. We have this sensation. Because the acid isn't supposed to be there.
Right.
When it gets there, it's like a warning signal that occurs.
What puts it there in the first place, and then what triggers it to backwash into the
esophagus.
Acid is always in the stomach. We always have it there. It supposedly aids in digestion and so forth.
What triggers it then?
One of the things that can trigger it is some of these nasty foods here.
I'll tell you what triggers it for me. Pizza will do it, especially with pepperoni. The orange
spicy.
juice will do it.
Right.
Those mint candies, I love them, but sometimes...
But you
they'll
left
do it
out
as
one
well.
important thing.
What's that?
That we all love. Chocolate.
Chocolate will do it?
Chocolate will do it. What chocolate does, and there have been some recent studies showing this, is it actually weakens this flap valve.
Well, why does
makes
it do it
easier.
only to a few of us?
We really don't know. We think that some individuals, and we know in fact that some individuals have a weaker little valve down there. It's not as strong. For example, in the elderly, it gets weaker as we get older.
You've
And
got
that's
a
not good.
vulnerable, weak flap.
Right. Let me show you some examples of what happens when we get real severe heartburn.
Okay.
I think we've got a picture of a normal-looking esophagus. Now, that's a normal-looking tube.
Yeah.
That's a real food
And the hole
tube.
in there is of normal size.
That's
The
a
food
normal
goes down
size. The
there.
food goes right down there. Now, normally, that's what it looks like.
Right into the old
Right into the
sackaroo.
old sackaroo. Now, that looks pretty awful. There, that's what happens. The acid actually burns.
Is that the same hole?
Same hole, same person, after he's had lots of heartburn.
or is that a piece of pizza? What is it?
It looks like a piece of hamburger.
You mean to
Looks
tell
like
me
a
that
piece
when
of
I'm
hamburger.
suffering heartburn, that's what's happening to the hole in my esophagus?
That can happen to you if you don't go see your doctor and get treated for it.
That's at the last stage, right before.
That's at the last stage, and of course it causes tremendous discomfort. And there are some interesting things now that physicians can do to treat this problem.
But first, Doctor, just let me ask you one thing. You
sure.
said it has to be treated. What are we on our way to? What kind of a problem?
Well, for one thing, what you just saw is a major problem, and then subsequent to that, what happens is the food tube gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It develops what we call a stricture. And it gets so small that you can't swallow adequately, you can't get food down there, you lose weight. It really becomes a very serious medical problem.
Sometimes the symptoms are so severe you think you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
That's true, and they can't really be distinguished from a heart attack.
Well, then why don't you just eliminate the foods that cause this kind of a reaction?
You can do that. That's step one in the treatment. In other words, when somebody goes to a physician, I would advise people to eliminate some of these foods that we have
What
here.
else would you advise?
Not just eliminate it, but isn't it the amount you eat too? I mean, you
That's
shouldn't
part of
gorge.
it, but basically just small amounts of that would be bad for you. But the second step would be to basically reduce the amount of acid that's in the stomach. And recently the Food and Drug Administration has approved of a particular drug. It's the only drug in its class, really, that's been approved by the FDA. It's called Zantac, which actually reduces acid secretion into the stomach. And if you have very, very little acid in the stomach, it isn't going to backwash, and it isn't going to be as likely to backwash into your food tube.
So that drug will eliminate that, and then is this a permanent situation?
Unfortunately, this is an incurable disease, and people have to take this medication for a very long period of time.
And we still don't know what causes it?
We don't know why the little flap valve is weak. We know that that's a culprit. We know that that's part of the problem. We just don't know why in some individuals it's weak.
What's the ingredient in something like Rolaids? What is in there to heal this?
What that does is it does nothing more than simply neutralize the acid. If you have occasional heartburn, once a month, or you go out and you eat a big meal and you have lots of the pizza and so forth, if you have a little heartburn, it's okay to take an antacid, and all it does is simply neutralize the acid that has backwashed into the food tube. It doesn't do anything physiologically to really cure the problem.
So if this is happening to you more than twice a week, you should definitely
go see your doctor. Absolutely.
Gosh, that's going to be an awful lot of people out there, because I know
right.
my mother just pops them like candy after lunch.
And I'm afraid I get my heartburn more than twice a week, too. Let me ask you something else. Besides the food, are there any other stressful situations, people you come in contact with who annoy you, who would produce this kind of an effect?
I wouldn't say that they might do it directly. What happens is indirectly, if you get stressed, you might eat more pizza. You might go out and eat a chocolate bar.
So it's not psychological, it has to be the physical activity.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Can't blame it on me.
No, I guess not. Let's take one more look at what I look like inside. Whoa! Real scary. Well, Doctor, did we cover everything? I think
Yes,
we did,
I think
huh?
so. We sure did.
Well, thank you very much for coming by. Nice having you here. Dr. Bill Orr from Presbyterian Hospital in Oklahoma City. Yeah. We'll be right back with a great recipe for dessert, and then we're going to talk about this husband whose children were kidnapped by his ex-wife.